Alright everyone, welcome to another new video ng Anatomy of a Scam series natin. And for this video, we'll be discussing yung part 2 ng Wedge Theory, no? Now, a lot of what we're gonna discuss today may not make sense kung hindi nyo pa po napapanood yung part 1. So, please go ahead and do so now. I've included the link for it in the description box below. Go ahead, hintayin ko po kayo, no? So, ready na? Okay? Again, kung hindi nyo pa po napapanood, please do so para lang po maging mas malinaw yung pinapaliwanag natin sa video na to. Okay? Now, ang pag-uusapan natin as we discussed is yung pag-set ng targets and magbibigay din po ako ng examples for further clarity. Okay? Now, there are two ways to calculate the potential target price when implementing wedge theory. Okay? The first is to wait for the price to break out of the pattern, then take the low of the pattern, okay, so siya yung L sa formula natin, and subtract it to the high, so siya naman yung H sa formula natin of the pattern, and then add the total to the breakout value, henceforth known as BV, where BV is equal to the point where the price broke out of the pattern. So the formula will be parenthesis H minus L plus BV equals TP. TP being the target price. Okay? Now, I realized that I just threw a bunch of letters at you and baka hindi po siya ganun ka-clear, no? So, let's go ahead and look at an example. Sorry. Look at an example para maging mas malinaw po itong pinag-uusapan natin. Now, you will notice na dito sa chart ng dito, nagkaroon tayo ng falling wedge, no? Which is a bullish pattern. So we were on an uptrend, tapos nagkaroon tayo ng wedge. In this particular instance, malayo pa po yung timeline natin. Nandito pa, around 4 point something, no? Or actually, less than pa ng konti, mga 3.98. Malayo pa. Okay? Now, paano natin dreno yung wedge? So first, kailangan meron po tayong anchor points, no? In this specific instance, ito yung high na isa, ito yung high na pangalawa. So meron tayong dalawang anchor points na pwedeng gamitin to draw out the upper trend line. The same for the bottom trend line, may dalawa. Now, some people may say na, bakit may lagpas ng konti? Dito po tayo nagkakaroon ng konting subjectivity. This is more art than science, no? The way that I draw trend lines, the way that Senior Spyfrat draws trend lines may not be the same as how you draw it. And that's perfectly fine, no? Because what we're trying to strive for is to define yung mga areas within our control, define yung mga areas na kumbaga less subjective and more objective, and then yung subjectivity, hinahayaan na lang natin ng konting room to grow. Konting room to explore. So, para sa akin, when I draw trend lines, yung ganitong hindi naman nagsara sa taas, para sa akin, hindi counted yun. I have two anchor points here. It try to close higher, ayaw. Try to close higher, ayaw. So, para sa akin, this line encompasses all of these. Until eventually, we did break out here. Okay? Now, mamaya i-breakdown ko yung formula, no? But first, a few things you might notice. Number one, medyo madumi dito sa side na to. And that's because I wanted to delete yung chart para lang mas ma-explain ko siya ng broken down. Kaya ngayon, screenshot yung kinuha ko rather than just going to the chart itself para lang mas clear, no? Now, let's see what happens next after mangyari nung pattern na to. As you can see, price moved to the upside and actually exceeded targets. Umabot to ng 14 point something and so on and more pa. Okay, but for the purpose of this discussion, ang tinitignan natin is ito. We had our pattern, we had our breakout, we calculated for the target, and then price went up. Now, paano nangyari? Paano binilang yung target? Okay? So, in that example, the high would have been 795 do sa pattern na yon. And then the low would have been 4.74. And then the breakout value would have been around 6.24. I say around kasi again, the way that we draw trend lines might differ slightly. 'Di ba? So kailangan talaga ng konting allowance. Ayoko namang ipilit na hindi, dapat 6.24 lang 'yan. Depende po 'yan kung paano nyo ginuhit yung trend line nyo. Okay? Now, applying the formula we discussed kanina, so that should be open and close parentheses, 7.95 minus 4.74 plus yung BV or yung breakout value at 6.24. So the target would have been around 9.45. So you would have earned around 30% no, had you gotten in at 6.24 and then sold at 9.45. Okay? Clear naman so far, di ba? We took the high, we subtracted the low, and then we took that result and added it to the breakout value to determine our initial target. Okay? Now, yung isa pang paraan para makahanap ng target is to take the low, again, of the pattern and subtract it to the high of the pattern and then add the total value to the apex's value. Now, kung hindi nyo na naaalala, sa previous video, we discussed what the apex was. The apex was where the points of both trend lines or both lines met doon sa wedge. Okay? The same can be applied for triangles, ascending triangles, whatever. Whatever pattern, no? And in fact, ang gagawin ko dito, iibahin ko ng konti. Rather than just focusing on a wedge, I will show you how to apply it sa triangle para lang mas comprehensive and mas marami tayong examples na maibigay. Okay? Now, take a look at this. So dito sa S.C.A.M, ito po yung high natin, around 6.2, and then our low no was around 5.2. Tapos, anong nangyari? Nag-form tayo ng triangle dito. Until eventually, we broke out in this candle here. No? This candle here. Now, the apex would have been where the lines intersected. Pero hindi na tayo umabot doon. Almost. We were like 2 or 3 candles away from hitting that apex. Ngayon, ang gagawin natin is kukunin natin yung high, ibabawas natin tong low, okay? Tas yung result, i-add natin dito sa apex. So in this particular instance, that would have been 6.2 minus 5.2. So piso, no? Then yung piso, idadagdag po natin dito sa kung saan tayo apex, so 5.4. So our target, our initial target, will be around 6.4. Okay? So, from that, more or less, kikita kayo ng 20% assuming mag-hit yung target. And as you can see from this next chart, we did go on to hit the target and even exceeded it all the way hanggang 7.17. Now, we all know what happened sa S.C.A.M. It moved even higher from there. But that's neither here nor there, no? Ang focus lang natin is the calculation nung pag-set ng target and yung paghanap ng mga examples para ipakita paano gamitin yung math na yon sa wedge theory and even sa other patterns like triangles and such. Okay? Now, how you approach your targets will be totally dependent on your trader profile. Ano ang ibig kong sabihin? Lahat po kasi tayo may kanya-kanyang objective, may kanya-kanyang approach, may kanya-kanyang gusto at ayaw. Okay? You could choose to exit the entire position once target is hit. Yeah, that's totally up to you, no? You can take partials and then trail your stop. Pwede rin. Pwede rin na you can use the target as a suggestion lang or as a guideline. It's completely up to you. Diba? Dahil lahat po tayong magkakaiba. Pati greed level natin magkakaiba. Maaaring ako, masaya na ako kumita ng 10-15%, pero ibang tao gusto nila 30, 40, 50% lagi. Okay? Lahat po tayo magkakaiba. So, nasa sa inyo na po yan kung paano nyo gagamitin yung knowledge na napulot nyo to set targets. Now, if you're gonna ask me, personally, I tend to do partials, meaning I will take some profit. How much profit, again, depends on the structure, depends on the overall look of the chart, but I will be guaranteed to take profit once target is hit. Tapos, mag-iiwan ako ng runner para kung sakaling tumakbo pa, runner means a smaller position, no? Para kung sakaling tumakbo pa yung price, umangat pa, lumipad pa, nakasakay pa rin ako. Kung hindi man, sabihin natin nag-pull back, ma-hit yung trail stop ko, at least karamihan ng profits ko, na-secure ko pa rin. Diba? Pero ibang tao ayaw ng ganun eh. May ibang tao gusto pag nag-hit ng target, hit na ng target, tapos na. Diba? May ibang tao naman ayaw. ayaw na nagta-target, gusto lagi maabot yung maximum na pwedeng maabot ng price. So, instead na magsiset sila ng targets, mag-set na lang sila ng trail stop tapos sabihin natin, ang target natin was kuya 7 pesos. Umangat na ng 7 pesos. Gagamitin nila yon as a guidepost to lift their stop up para ma-secure pa rin yung gains kahit papano. Okay, kanya-kanya po talaga, lahat magkakaiba. Walang pinakatama, wala rin pong pinakamali. Actually, that's not completely true, no? Merong pinakamali. Ang pinakamali is hindi ka talaga kukuha ng profit, hahayaan mong bumalik yung price kasi quote-unquote sayang yung average. Tapos before you know it, yung kinita mong 20, 15%, naging negative pa. Naging negative 10, naging negative 20, simply because you were protecting something that didn't need protecting. Okay? So guys, dito po nagtatapos yung usapan natin at yung lesson natin regarding wedge theory. I hope based from the examples and the formulas that we showed, naging clear naman po ang lahat sa inyo. Okay? As always, I decided to only show one example each for the sake of brevity, no? Pero kung meron po kayong mga tanong, huwag po kayong mag-aatubili. Please feel free to post them in the comment section below and I'll be sure to try and answer them as soon as I can. Kung meron po ako hindi masagutan, I'll be sure to forward them to Senior Spyfrat para siya po mismo yung sasagot sa inyo and we can clear up any misconceptions, any confusion, and so on. And as always guys, maraming salamat po sa panonood. I really appreciate it. Good luck and happy trading!